commissioners. And we have been planning for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, and Dr. Lutz is there too. We have been planning on a new school. And we were told, I guess a year and a half, 2 years ago, to go on and find a piece of property. And so we searched for a piece of property, and we found one that we felt was suitable to relieve the overcrowding at Modoc Elementary and the almost overcrowding at Shulver Elementary. The commissioners felt like they could build a school. We talked about this last summer when we considered moving the boundaries. They felt like we could move forward. The General Assembly had appropriated, I believe, $11 million in their budget last year to help us with the construction of the school. And our commissioners had other money put aside. So we felt like we could do this without floating a bond. Well, long story short, the General Assembly and Governor Cooper could not come to terms with the budget. So I believe the General Assembly passed the budget, the governor vetoed the budget, and then they could never get on the same page. So we didn't get that $11 million. And then along came the pandemic and some issues with the transportation department that's going to take some money. And in talking with state officials, I've been told that $11 million, we might as well not count on that. And our commissioners don't feel like we can count on that either. And so we met last week to talk about where we're going with the school. And now the commissioners say we have to come up with some money elsewhere since we're not getting that $11 million. So the options are to float a bond, which that would not be on a ballot for 2 years. It would be 2022. And only then, if we get approval, would we move forward with the bond. Now, the bond would not just be funding an elementary school. It would also fund some other school needs that we know are coming down the road, like possibly another middle school, additional high school seats. That's still up in the air exactly what those needs are. If the only other alternative is to do an installment plan on an elementary school. We did talk about that. And I think Ms. Etheridge and I were on that page. We felt like we did not want to wait 2 years to see if a bond was even approved by the voters. We felt like we need a school now. Modoc is over capacity. There's lots of growth going on as we speak in Modoc, houses going up on a daily basis. So that's where we are now. We have to get back with commissioners. And I believe Dr. Lutz said we're going to try to get together soon. Tuesday, and decide which way we're going. This raises concerns for us. We had talked last year about moving boundaries. And at the last minute, we found out we were over capacity. And at the last minute, we talked about moving boundaries, and parents were very concerned, very upset, as is understandable. We didn't want to move boundaries. We moved boundaries and have children go to another school for 2 years, build the new school, then they go back. But now it's not looking like we can get a school in 2 or even 3 years. So now we're faced with overcrowding for a much longer period of time. So we probably need to look at moving boundaries. We need to look at everything. A school, just the elementary school. So it's a new game, so to speak. We thought we were moving forward and getting an elementary school and that it was funded. And now it's not funded because we don't have a budget from the state with that $11 million coming to us. So everything's back on the table as to what we want to do.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Yes, on July 22nd, a few members of the Board of Education did meet with Dr. Lutz and Matt Mullins and a few county commissioners, along with our county manager, to discuss the options to address our overcrowding at both Moyock Elementary School and Moyock Middle. This has been a problem, and a lot of you were at the town hall meeting that we had at the school last year, and there were some parents that were very irate, and we promised them that we would move forward with trying to alleviate the overcrowding at these schools, and I want to fulfill that promise. But as Ms. Rhodes explained, our hands are tied with the $11 million that we were hoping to get to help us, and with the county commissioners funding that they had set aside too. So some ideas that were discussed for the new school site, they're now discussing making some improvements to the existing school, possibly adding on to Moyock Elementary and Moyock Middle School. They discussed the bond referendum, but that's a long-term process. You're looking at least 2 years, if not 5 or 6 years down the road. We don't have that time. Something needs to be done right now, and I would love to work with the county commissioners to fulfill this promise, because there is a need for our kids. We have to do something right away. We're meeting again next Tuesday at 4 o'clock to see if we can't come up with a plan and move forward without waiting 3 to 6 years. And that's even if you put it on a bond referendum, we have to have approval from the voters of Currituck County to approve the bond referendum, then move forward. So everything's up in the air, and I just wanted to make sure that the public was informed of what's going on. If you would like to call your county commissioners, tell them that there is a need, we have to do something, and we have to do something right away. I would urge each and every one of you to do that. Thank you. Item B, we're going to...
Excuse me. Didn't we have the trailers put out there for this year to try to help alleviate for this year, though?
To try to alleviate for this year, but we have already, the kids, the students that have enrolled, we have those numbers as of today. Dr. Lutz, can you share those with the public?
As of today, we have 640 students enrolled at Moyock Elementary, and we have 599 at Charborough Elementary. That is an increase from last year. At this time, I believe Moyock Elementary had around 585.
What are the capacity numbers for those two schools?
I do not have the capacity
Okay.
numbers.
Do you have, but we are
We're over in Moyock.
over in
The number
Moyock.
that the commissioners have approved, we're over for Moyock. I think we have around 80 or 90 seats at Charborough at this point.
And so we did bring in mobile units to try to alleviate the overcrowding. And we have those approved, and we have those ready to go. But that's just putting a Band-Aid on the solution. That's not the solution. We can't keep buying mobile units. We have to address the problem at hand. And so I urge everyone to get involved. We can't just sit back and say, well, we're going to get through this year, we're going to deal with it next year. We have to do something now.
We have lots of subdivisions that are under construction right now, houses being built.
Yeah.
So we know the children are coming. We do, and I think, I can't remember Dr. Lutz, but I'm thinking Charborough was like 620?
I think it was 680.
680, okay. So about 80 more kids, but,
Moyock Middle School is at 606,
okay.
and the fourth grade class, when you look at Knott's Island and Moyock Elementary and Charborough, which those are your feeders in Moyock Middle, is 250 as of today. So our largest class, I think the largest class ever in Moyock Middle is sitting at 220 right now. We had a class, the fourth grade class, when they hit sixth grade, is at 250 right now.
So in 2 years.
This year, next year, then they'll be there.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? All right, moving on. Item B, remote learning plan. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Matt Lutz.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. We had, we had a quick turnaround time on this. So July 14th, the governor said you're going to choose option B. We're going to choose option C. If you choose B, you're going to do C. So on the 22nd, we gathered, we had a work session, discussed the plan on the 27th of July. A little over a week ago, the board approved moving forward with Plan C. And that brings us to how we plan on starting our year. We have, go to the very first slide. We had a large group of people come together to help plan to start off this year with a lot of people contributing. We had talked about having them possibly present, but in order to get through this and share this information as efficiently as possible, I'm going to walk us through this. If you could hold your questions as I just go through it, and we can come back, but there's a lot of information. I want to make sure our public gets to see that. We will post this information first thing tomorrow morning once we any tweaks that we need to make at that point. So, on our return to learn plan, everybody has a copy on the first slide. Put together a piece here that we kind of show what March and June look like. Was reactive, and we're being proactive. We did not take attendance. Engagement was not always where we would like it to be. We will be taking attendance daily. There will be accountability. We will have grades issued according to our board policy. We will have scheduled time every day that teachers interact with students live. That will be an option. If they are not able to watch it live, then they will be able to come back and watch a recording from the teacher. And we will have whole class sessions. And we attempted to put together, we'll take a look at some schedules here in a minute. We attempted to work through the K-12, recognizing elementary, middle, and high school are all discrete entities unto themselves. Next slide. So we also put together our teacher expectations. We've shared our teacher expectations. Our teachers have had a chance to look at this. They won't be surprised, which is that they're going to report to their buildings, and we're going to follow a daily work schedule. They're going to attend weekly professional development, and we're going to have two-way communication between our families and our students. It's going to be a priority for us to build those relationships. This is a tough time for everyone. Remote learning is not what our schools are set up to do. We had some outstanding work done in the spring, and we took that and we're building upon that and recognizing the weaknesses and addressing it. We also have student expectations, and what we expect from our students as well is we're going to ask our students to be engaged and respond and submit their assignments on time. Our attempt is to provide next slide, the best possible structure for our kids. So we know that all of us thrive in structure, and kids really expect some structure. So what we did initially with our schedules is make an attempt to provide a structured schedule for them. Would you pass those out? You can also, I got this, you can pass it. You want to click the live links? Good. These schedules are subject to change. They are a start. We thought that we would rather start with a tight structure. I'm going to click on the K5. We wanted to start with a tight structure that you can loosen rather than a loose structure. We recognize that we're learning as well, and so we'll constantly evaluate where we're at and what we can do to make things as best as we can for our students, our parents, and our staff, so that we create as good a learning environment as we possibly can. You'll see that the elementary schedule has 5 different live opportunities throughout the day, along with small group instruction. The student is not expected to sit on his computer or her computer all day long. That is, without a doubt, not the intention here, but it was loud and clear that we needed to provide synchronous learning opportunities for our students. This is a desire from both parents and our students that we do that. We believe that this schedule at least gives us a starting point to allow for that. And we also build in professional development on Friday that we're going to need to make sure that we are calibrating and teaching the material across our division as close as we can as the same from one end of the county to the other. And we need to continue to work better with our remote tools. Currituck Middle schedule. It looks like that'll be the second page. Again, we're trying to provide a structure that looks as close to the daily routine that you would get. What I really like to do is just take a look at the bottom page, and then there will be 30 minutes. I think the highlight here is that there's 30 minutes of synchronous learning per class each day. So we're going to guarantee that we're going to have a live teacher there for our students. We're trying to build a schedule so when they come back to school, they can get into a routine. So we're trying to create a routine while we're not in the building. And the students are going to follow their core classes, their elective classes, and so on and so forth, all being the same. Reynolds middle schedule. Again, 30 minutes of synchronous learning. One of the things that we're able to address through these schedules is trying to serve our exceptional children as well as our at-risk learners. And so we have time built in that's going to accommodate their plans. And so that that's why we had to stay with the more of a traditional structure. And we thought that was what we heard from our community and from our board, that we should at least begin from that point, and we can respond appropriately from there. The middle school schedules both are similar. We're both guaranteeing 30 minutes of synchronous learning per class. Again, the student is not on a computer all day long. They're not sitting there on a computer. They can go on and then off. They can come back to a recorded lesson, but the teacher should be there to respond to the student's needs and questions that they may have afterwards. High school schedule. And these schedules were built in conjunction with the principals and the SIT teams, and then there was further feedback from the staff as well. So we started with principals, they went to their school improvement teams, vetted it further, made a few tweaks and changes, then they shared out with their staff. They should have shared with their staff on Tuesday, but we had quite the power failure across the region, so we had to move those meetings to Wednesday. Again, the high school schedule looks fairly traditional. The traditional schedule provides structure. And you can see at the bottom, the daily schedule is built with reflect the student's typical day, provide a sense of normalcy for students, parents, and teachers, face-to-face instruction during those 30 minutes. And it doesn't mean that the teacher must communicate with their students this is when I'm going to be live. It doesn't mean that at 8:20 everybody goes on live. They may say, we're going to start with this, and I'm going to come live at 8:40. We're going to do 8:40 to this, but that should enable our students and our teachers to communicate with each other as well. And you can see some of the other reasons there. The critical time for EC services, a semester's worth of curriculum, and provide sufficient hours for credentialing courses, and we'll touch on that later in the presentation with CTE. And again, all of this is done with the idea that we're going to get back to school and get back to some sense of normalcy and provide a structure for them. JP Knapp started their orientation today. And their schedule looks very similar to that of the traditional high schools with the same expectations. The high school expectations are the same across each one. Should have some questions on there. We'll come back to that. All right. Employee health and safety. So our building hours will be set from 7:45 to 4 o'clock. For our elementary teachers, this is going to be quite the challenge. They tend to live in the buildings. Early hours to late, but in order to keep our buildings clean and sanitized, even though we will be able to practice the proper social distancing protocols, we're going to have to close our buildings at 4 and have our teachers leave so that our custodial staff can go in and make sure everything will be clean. When employees enter, they will have their temperatures checked daily by nurses. And if we'll have protocols in place, if the fever is above 104, and so on and so forth. Masks are going to be worn. And you all received a mask, our staff will be receiving the same. Especially, this might have been the easiest back to school gift ever. personalized mask. You can embroider your initials on there later. We're going to continue to worry about capacity in common areas, sanitize with Clorox wipes in the main office, and we'll mark pathways in the halls, and narrow hallways should have a one-way direction. These are all considerations. We can use the example whether you shop at Target or Walmart or a grocery store, you'll see the same type of signage. This particular slide, I just wanted to put this in here so that everyone knows that we want to get back to school. Thank you. The following considerations we in place for when we return to school were special circumstances in which students need to report to school. So these are just some things that drop off, protocol for students arriving late, leaving early, visitors to the building, and guidelines for specials, including recess. So again, we have things in place for when we return, and just wanted to make everyone aware that we are considering that option. Operations, facilities, transportation, and school nutrition. Matt Mullen and his crew, we've been working on gathering as much PPE supplies as we can. Schools are going to be cleaned daily. Our custodians are to be moved to different shifts to ensure that our buildings are clean. Matt has a plan in place with his crew to ensure that we're using specific cloths and so on and so forth. And we actually had purchased, I believe, 2 electrostatic sprayers, which is the Clorox Total 360, from when we had our terrible flu outbreak at Merrick Elementary. So we're one of the few schools in the region that have the sanitizing device, and he's ordered another one as well. And we have enough to do a few cleanings, and some more supplies are on order. As you can imagine, the entire country is back ordered on cleaning supplies. I couldn't tell you last time I found a bottle of Lysol. Anyone? Transportation, so our bus drivers will be utilized in alternate capacities once state funding is authorized and released. There's no benefit to this other than knowing that everyone from one end of the state to the other and 115 school districts were all in the same predicament and the same problem. We didn't get hit by a hurricane and hoping for help. We all are facing the same questions and the same concerns. School nutrition operations under Plan C. Angela, of course, is always on the ball and very thorough in her approach. One of the changes that I'd like to point out here is that only students are going to get served. The rules are very liberal in the spring, and we allowed for families to pick up, we allowed adults and so on and so forth. That reimbursement is ending at the end of August, and so we'll no longer be able to continue to just serve meals without validating that these are students, and the guardian or parents are bringing them too. And that's outlined in the last one as well. And we're going to do pre-ordering and pre-packaging. And of course, Angela always has a plan in place. I'm not worried about how we're going to make sure we get our kids fed during these tough times. Athletics and extracurricular activities. Mr. Todd Parker, of course, is taking care of this athletic group. He's great at informing those in the know what's going on, and he is on the ball. Now, we just moved from phase 1 to phase 2 on August the 3rd. Phase 2 meant we could actually pick up a ball. And start laughing. Thank you, Ms. Rose. I know, we've been running, but without a ball. So you could play football, be there, clean it in between. They've done surveys. There's an option 1 to begin September 1st. That went off the table today, as we would in phase 2. So that slide to knock it up. And then this is how this target is moving. And so you have something printed that was current as of this morning and is no longer current at this time. Option 2 is to begin late November, and option 3 is to begin second semester. There's a line right now, it says LEAs that are virtual have to decide if athletics can take place while students are not face-to-face with teachers. I feel very sure that the state will make that decision, and that will not rest on us as an individual district to decide if you're in remote learning whether or not you can play sports. Most LEAs in our conference are planning on virtual learning, as we've talked about already, especially at the secondary level. LEAs, again, this is almost outdated from the time it was put in. But region athletic directors feel that We will eventually make the decision by delaying the season until December and shutting down sports until we have a grasp on the virtual return to learning. So I think the best case scenario is we move forward with Plan C, we get a grasp on how this is working, and perhaps we reintroduce athletics. And those are statewide decisions. Special program areas, CTE, we figured there may be some questions regarding how we're going to move forward with CTE. Mr. Don Monroe has put together how the plan is going to move forward with CTE, the revision of pacing guides, third-party prepackaging materials, virtual job shadows, quite the lift, but there is a plan in place, and as Mr. Monroe and I talked, he's going to be one tired guy after the semester getting this off the ground. Because if you look at the next slide, the first slide has courses that are taught in a traditional setting. The second one requires lab time. So these are questions that are being asked across the state. Again, we're not having to work in a vacuum on this. There are discussions everywhere and getting support. But this is what's on the table: to realign pacing guides, sequencing, third-party credentialing materials and activities, develop a plan, and using some current industry models as well to help facilitate this. Again, not ideal. People are thinking of it. Wanted to make you aware that this, we have not forgotten by any stretch or the impact of this places on CTE, which of course is hands-on, should be hands-on. We've received a number of calls, I know you have as well, or emails regarding how we're going to provide services to our exceptional children under virtual learning. We recognize that we have improvements to make from the spring. Jamie Miller has done an outstanding job of working with her team. And when you see it says will, that matters. It's not we might, that's the same as shall. So case managers will, we're outlining, we're going to meet our kids' needs. And if we feel like we can't do it under in a remote environment, we're going to amend that IEP to work with that family, with the families to get the services that they need. This will be an individualized process to meet each student's unique needs. There will be no one-size-fits-all solution. And ultimately, an IEP is an individual education plan. So this is what we should do. We're really going to have to double down on this to ensure that we're meeting our exceptional children's needs. We also put in here what parents should expect. If they're contacted by the child's case manager the first week of school, that services stay in their IEP, we offer. And then we have live synchronous goals, instruction to reinforce IEP goals. So we have put in place here what a parent can expect. Therapy, physical therapy, deaf and hard of hearing, and frequent data collections. Much greater direct impact than what we saw in the spring. We recognize that. Again, we across the region, across the state, bordering states, our kids in the exceptional children's world perhaps didn't get the best services, but we're making strides to improve our services in that area. Technology and Sandy Reynolds. Where Sandy was our backbone throughout the spring, did an absolutely fabulous job, her and her team, of making sure that our kids all received devices, that teachers had access to exceptional professional development. Many of our staff did take advantage of that. But what we outlined here, we will be one-to-one at some point this fall for all of our kids. I was going to say K-12, I'm going to add pre-K as well. We're going all the way down to there. We found some grants. We're taking care of that group, all of our kids. We are back ordered on some of our devices. And so in the meantime, we're patching together what we already have. And once we get our brand new devices in, they're going to be out the door and in our kids' hands, our parents' and our families' hands as soon as possible. We were able to fund these devices through our CARES Act funding that came in. We are a Tier 3 county, which means we don't get as much funding as other counties. And so we did get enough to ensure that we were able to outfit all of our K-3 kids with new devices moving forward. And I'm gonna bounce off this just for the board's sake, just for a second. By taking some of those funds, we were able to replenish some of our tech funds and capital at the end of last year, and we had a little bit of carryover. We'll talk about that later. So we're able to take federal money, and there's a thing called supplanting. We're allowed to do that under the CARES Act, which means you can move it and do the same thing. I didn't want, someone in the know might catch that. All right. Internet accessibility. Now here's what we're gonna make sure that our kids get devices. We're gonna make sure that they get a Wi-Fi or a KJet device at home. Those are specifically for Knott's Island because of Knott's Island's issues with internet service, and so they're specifically to address those. And we have the Sprint 1 million grant that covers all of our schools. We identified who were kids that didn't have devices, who did not have internet service, and parents and so on. And we made every effort to identify them and get these devices in their hands. We cannot fix connectivity issues that we may have on broadband, but what we can control, Sandy and her team have done a fabulous job of controlling that. We feel very good about what we know about our kids and our families, or what access they have and what they don't have, because that's a big part of moving this remote learning piece forward, is access. We will continue to offer robust professional development for our teachers. It's important that if we expect our teachers to teach in a remote environment, that we provide them top quality professional development. We've partnered with groups to come in and work with our elementary staff, for example, on how to teach kids reading in a remote environment. That is TV that we have, that we've partnered with. We feel great about that. We have professional development coming in for our Dreambox and math for our K-8 teachers to kick off the year, and multiple other pieces as well. So one of the things that is so important when you add new programs, that you support your teachers and provide training, and not just say, hey, good luck. We have put a plan in place for that. We will continue to update our websites for family support and to make sure that links should be live and things should be active. More than anything else, just want to make you aware that we've created a reopening guidebook for Currituck schools for faculty and staff. We're working on one for parents and students as well. Again, we're building these things as quickly as possible. Our communications team, where we had some outstanding work from Christina Bauer and Renee and Melissa as well. They're all contributing to some outstanding work and trying to improve our communication. But look for something to come out for parents. This is hot off the press. It's live. It's going to change. So even if you have a copy right now, things are moving and changing. We're going to work to keep those updated. The last piece I wanted to bring you up to date on was our financial component of this. Because you should be asking, well, how do we pay for this? We were able to leverage, the state gives money and grants called PRCs. Larissa's not here, but I don't know what that refers to, but they give grants. And when they give a grant, they also put restrictions on about how you can spend that money. We were able to take this money and get everything from Chromebooks and cleaning supplies. We used the 121 fund for a summer jump start and more computer programs to, for example, to improve our EC services. We're able to use programs that our EC teachers have used and have requested, and we may not have had funding for, so we moved forward with funds there. 122, we're able to get more support for our students with psychologists, nurses, school counselors. 123 helps with the Kajits and improving internet connectivity, along with 128. So those were different buckets of money. The largest of which was the first one. All the others were under $100,000, but we're trying to leverage those funds as much as possible. And the last one, the ADM. All right, so here's our concerns. If the ADM drops below our number, we could lose state money in teaching positions. Right now, we're holding steady. Our ADM as of today was 4282, so we're 50 above when she told this number. Our current ADM is 4,282 students. I made sure I pulled out preschools, made sure I pulled out any of the other That number I feel is accurate to where we're at right now. And people continue to enroll daily. Charter schools, we don't have any active charter schools in our county, but with a virtual component, kids can get a charter school education living in Currituck from a school in Wade. Just wanted to make you aware of that. We have not been hit hard by anything yet, but I wanted to put that out there. And state transportation funds will not allow us to pay bus drivers who are driving if they're restricted. All state buckets of money put restrictions on it. We want to put this on there. Again, the entire state is in the same place. There is a lot of movement at the legislative front to allow for funding to be relaxed. Another update that is not on here as well is that there is very robust discussion around the class size law, relaxing it this year with K-3, which is impactful for a district like ours. It keeps growing, and we have to keep adding teachers to meet the required mandates. As promised, we'll continue to meet regularly to evaluate our progress and make any necessary changes. I think that's the most important thing I can share with you and our public is that we're going to continue to work to make this better and we're going to talk about it. Okay.
Thank you, Dr.
You're
Mills.
welcome.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I have a question. I know for a while, the school nutrition department, fixed meals, put them on a bus, and took them to remote locations. But now, according to this, kids are going to have to come into the schools to pick up their lunches.
That's the current plan. Until we have to get some freedom from our transportation to have remote sites again.
I have some questions.
Can I want to add. The plan though is to limit the number of times a parent would have to come out. They would come out twice a week. They'd get a bag lunch and then a prepared lunch for the next day, then come out and get another hot and 2 prepared lunches. So they would not have to come every day.
I'm concerned with the last page about bus drivers.
Yes.
So it says we can't use state transportation funds to pay bus drivers who aren't driving. Does that mean our bus drivers are going to be laid off?
What it means is that currently there is a tremendous amount of discussion to free those funds up and give us latitude to use those funds differently to pay our drivers to do other work. I think that was discussed in our last meeting briefly, that we need to keep our people employed. But we don't want any surprises. This is sitting under a conference called superintendent. This is a hot button item across the state. We feel the word we're getting is that we're expecting some relief with those funds.
So, but as of right now, we haven't had that relief. So have our bus drivers been, are we keeping them aware of the situation?
They are aware. They're calling Mr. Mullins daily.
Would they be allowed to collect unemployment?
I am not sure. I believe that they didn't get it. I believe that they could if we go there, but we'd rather keep the gainfully employed and be as creative as we can. We're just waiting for some relief.
Have they been eligible this summer?
They've been working,
Some have been working all throughout the summer with transportation, with food service as well.
but
Others not.
are they eligible when you're out of school?
No.
Because they would know if that was okay. Yeah.
Dr. Wood, it's under instruction. There last year to this year, lots of positives this year. And we had what students are doing and teachers are doing. I'm assuming that administration and support staff is there to oversee, to ensure that this is going to happen, and to offer guidance.
There is a section, and again, the effort for the time on this. There's a piece that says central services. We'll be doing this. The building administrator will do this. We've outlined it for everyone and what that looks like.
And so we have a plan in place as to what happens for the students who are not participating. Are we going to reach out,
Yes,
see
we are.
what they need?
Yes, we are. Now that we've got this piece in place, the next step is to start identifying with kids that are not getting engaged and coming towards the 4 people to go out, track our kids down. Let's get your page, let's find where you're at, what's going on, are we having some, everything from, are we having mental health issues to, we run out of electricity, what's the issue and why are we not getting engaged?
And the schedules were definitely a plus because I've had some calls from parents wanting to know, what are we doing? Are we doing in the morning? Are we doing all day? Because they need to plan their work. So that's a good thing. And teachers were involved in the planning of those schedules.
Every single teacher, so it went from actually it started with the principals because they're the ones that have to own the schedule. And so they worked through by division. Then they shared it with the school improvement team. Gathered some more information. For example, we picked up from the high school that we probably needed to bump our lunch a little bit out. I mean, we added a little bit of time in the lunch to allow for kids to go pick up lunch if they need to. And so that type of input. Overall, the teachers were generally, from what I heard back from our principals, were very pleased. They were happy to see the structure, and while there's nervousness, but there's also an excitement to get going.
Also, I've heard several comments regarding which supplies, the supply list. It never, they're used to having a supply list, like,
I got that call yesterday.
yeah.
Do we have a list?
So, what I think we need to really get something out to parents right away on that, because they're a lot of them are saying, we don't just buy it all at one time, we can't afford that, we need to spread it out over a few days or that kind of, a few weeks.
I will follow up with our principals on that tomorrow.
Yes, thank you.
I know I walked past that this is different this year.
I know. I was like, well,
Stores are not sold out.
Yes.
Dr. Woods, you mentioned, you're going to reach out to students that are not participating. We haven't seen a lot of children at Currituck since March last year. And I know elementary teachers normally reach out to the students on their class list and say, I'm going to be your teacher. Are we going to do that at the school and high school level as well?
Absolutely. I think this is a time to really rethink how we engage with our kids. To me, if I had a student that had missed 4 straight days, I would have reached out to that student, whether I was in a remote environment or I was in a typical classroom environment. That, to me, is the type of behavior that that you would want for all kids, from our teachers and so on. But we're going to make sure we're utilizing all of our staff that we can do that as well. So a guidance counselor's job is going to look a little bit different. They're going to be providing more guidance around emotional support issues, probably less issues around perhaps in middle school some trauma, or the high school dealing with scheduling issues, because those things should work itself out. We're also going to need, we have strong people in this position, like Athena Chesney, for example, who serves as one of our attendance liaisons, and then she'll help coordinate that work as well.
I know there's concerns for, situations with abuse and neglect, and we haven't seen the children since the middle of March, so if they're on a list, and we need to try and touch base with all of our children.
We had some groups, when I say some, we identified some of our more at-risk kids, the kids that we knew were going to struggle, and we did reach out to them in the spring, and that's a great place to start in the fall.
So, looking at the schedules, and I heard you say that they're not expected to be on the computer all day, for example, like K through 5, which I'm looking at. So, when I look at this, as a parent of a 4th grader, what exactly am I expecting? Not as a board member, as a parent of a 4th grader.
You have the opportunity as a 4th grader.
I want to know what this means for me and my son. Is he going to be on the computer all day? How does this work?
The 9:30, so he'll have an opportunity at 9 o'clock for a live session around one of the four areas.
Will this be with his 4th grade instructor? Or will
Yes.
the instructors be rotating?
No, it'll be a 4th grade, it'll be his 4th grade, his 4th grade teacher.
Okay,
And all of these sessions will be recorded too.
Yes, ma'am. I heard that part. I'm trying to understand when I'm looking at all these different time slots.
9:30 to 10:30. You won't be on the computer, right?
Correct. Unless it's been prearranged to say, I want to meet with.
But you still got to get back on at 2:30 to 3. Is that true?
Yes,
Okay, and at 1:30.
10:30
that's,
to 11.
they can, again, it's a lot of opportunity. So this is a tricky thing. So people ask for live synchronous learning
Yes, sir.
and they want a structure, but we know that we can't have people on for, especially an elementary kid, for long extended periods of time. This is a start. If we need to work and tweak this, we can. But this is our start.
So how does this work? Right on through, tell me the rest of the other middle schools and high schools, so I understand.
So we think that the elementary component is a little more challenging, especially in the K2.
Yes, sir.
Moving into 3-5. So at the middle school level, what we're trying to do in high school is provide as close to a normal day that they would see. So at some point between 8:20 and 9:05, they would be live with their teacher. And the next class, the same type of thing, so going through. So not on the full time, every lesson recorded, the opportunity to come back. And this is a starting point. We didn't have enough of it in the spring. But when we started looking at the secondary schedules as well, and thinking about all of our kids across and providing services, for example, with our PC piece that we need to do, a traditional schedule we felt was the best place to begin. We also believe our network handled this as well. We upgraded 2 years ago. That'd be a question as well. So we believe that we can have a large number of teachers on at the same time, and we should be able to support it.
So when these lessons are recorded, I'm assuming obviously going back to K through 5, obviously there's going to be other courses as you go through the other schools. But let's just say for a sake of discussion, the 9 to 9:30 is going to be math. The 10 to 10:30 is going to be English. From 1 to 1:30 is going to be science. And 2:30 to 3 is going to be social studies. You're saying they're going to be live and or recorded. How long is that recording available? Will that be available for the whole semester? Or is that for the week or during the course of that day? I mean, I just, I'm curious, what?
I think usually students have 5 days if they're absent in a traditional to make up their work. So I would think that they all need to be available at least 5 days.
At least. Ms. Reynolds, are you on the call?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, the videos that would be recorded would go into the teacher's Google Drive, a separate folder called Meet. They have those recordings until they choose to do something else with it. That also records a copy of the transcript from the chat every meeting.
Standing.
Yes.
We're having a hard time hearing. Why don't you come out from behind the curtain and come on in?
All right, I'm coming.
While she's coming, can we talk about the high school schedule? I know our high school students, some are going to have younger siblings. I just wonder, I see what you're doing, you've got the normal class periods. I wonder if, and they're doing 30, 40 minutes face-to-face, if we could have those back-to-back, and then their independent time could be in the afternoon? Is that a possibility, or was that discussed, or it's been brought to my attention? I think a neighboring school system is doing something like that.
Sorry.
Again, I think this, we're going to learn and we're going to try to attempt to figure out what works the best.
And we could tweak it.
And we get so we started with a tighter structure, more typical, that I think people are familiar with. It's not working, and we're going to have to pivot and make some of those changes. But when we started looking at doing things that were a little less traditional and perhaps a little more creative, especially at the secondary level, we were running into problems around providing services such as EC or C, right? It's not seat time, but you still have to get X amount of hours for that course to take place. And one of the benefits that might come out of this, on a 90-minute block schedule, you really shouldn't have more than 30 minutes of direct instruction. You should have more engagement with your kids out after direct instruction, not a 90-minute lecture. So hopefully some byproducts of this will
After the
become.
first 30 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was my next, question. 30 minutes out of a 90-minute day of direct instruction, so I assumed that the other 60 would be small group or guided practice instruction.
Yes.
The time, yeah, was one of them.
Yes, ma'am. I was just inquiring how long the recorded class, is gonna be available.
So, I'm sorry, the sound wasn't good, but anytime I would record a meet, anybody records a meet, like what that's doing now, it automatically saves to a Google Meet folder in their drive, and we have no storage limits because of our agreement with them. So they have access to that forever. As far as the teacher now, most of the teachers would upload that into what they call a wild learning management system like Google Classroom. So it would be either in the stream or listed as a piece of classwork. So the student could go back and reference it at any time by finding it on that classwork stream. And there's also a copy of the chat's transcript from every recorded meet that also goes into that folder so that they can go back and look and see what the questions the students had. Maybe that might inform their instruction the next day.
Yes,
So is it like dated or something, so if I had a student who missed a day or two, then they could go in and look at the date and say, okay, well, I missed this date, and I can pull it up like that.
Most of the teachers, the way, and I hope I'm not restating something that was already done, because some parents are working parents,
Right.
and the student might not be getting on until the evening time to do their classwork. So me as a teacher, I record my lesson. For those who are here, we have our synchronous opportunity. As soon as that is finished, before I go home, I upload those things to my Google Classroom. So those students who are doing it after hours, after the parents get home, or whatever happened during the day, they can go in and still have their asynchronous lesson, the material, and some type of activity or practice or whatever, contact their teacher, let them know if they need assistance.
So this sounds like a great opportunity. You're making it very versatile for working parents that cannot be there with their child. Maybe the children have to go to a babysitter or daycare. Parents can get with them in the evening. They won't be allowed to interact with their classmates at that point, but it will be recorded. But
And
it's
then
nice.
also, that 8 to 8:30, having that opportunity for parents to contact, and then also that 3 to 3:30 office hours, parent contact for questions, and my child didn't understand this, can you get them in a small group, that kind of thing.
And I also wanted to say while you're in here, Sandy, I visited your website today looking at a policy, and I noticed it was new. It looks great, it's user-friendly, and it like had your name all over it. I'm sure you're responsible for
No,
that.
I can't, no, Melissa, we had a team who worked together.
Well,
on
you all
that,
did a
and-
great
And
job.
we are pleased with the progress.
It's so much information. It's very inviting when you're on the homepage, and so hats off to you and your team.
Thank you.
thank you. No, ma'am, I have no more questions for you, but I have some more questions. So I got questions around the employee and student health and safety. I guess my questions are gonna go like this. What are we doing with children of employees during this time?
Children of employees are allowed, only school-age children are allowed to attend with their parent. And they must stay in the classroom, they must go through the same safety checks, they must wear a mask. They do not get run of the building, and they will be in with their parent for the duration of the day.
All right, so another ripple in the pond that's going to have long-lasting ill effects in my opinion. And I'm sympathetic to everyone, but I want to point out from a couple different perspectives. It's like the line workers that are waiting patiently to fix my power. They can't remote in. People stocking these stores that we need so much from, Lysol that we can't find and everything, toilet paper that we can now, they can't remote in. They can't take their children. So they're faced with reality of having to figure this out. The other aspect, so I want to talk about that a lot of people are going to face a lot of other challenges because the way that education has morphed over many decades. People have evolved their work schedule around their legal requirement of putting their children in school through the 12th grade. The other aspect is when these children come into the buildings, who's liable if the child contracts something or gives it to someone else? If we're worried about the children coming in and we're going to say one child is impacted or one person impacted is too many, then I have to ask, I don't know, who's going to be responsible for that? Because personally, I think it should be left up to the parent. I think the parents should be deciding what's best for them and their family unit. We already have these schools available to the parents that want to put their kids in there. And the people that don't feel comfortable for their family unit want to make some other consideration. So who's going to be responsible if, God forbid, the fear that somebody have of something happens to one of those children or those co-workers that aren't bringing children into the building?
What is the plan if, we're all standing in a classroom, somebody gets sick, does the whole school have to quarantine?
Those are spelled out. Virginia, are you on the line?
I am.
You comfortable answering that quicker than I can?
Yes. So it would have to be a little bit of investigation done as far as the contact that person had with other staff members in the building. And so depending on the contact and how long the contact was and all of that, then that person may have to go home. A couple people have to go home. It would just be situational.
I see, it wouldn't be the whole school.
Correct.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be subject to any liability from letting those kids come in or subject to any potential litigation from keeping kids that parents want them to come in, right? Because I'm just trying to be fair and look at it from all
The way I
perspectives.
think about it is if a teacher is bringing their own children to school and they're being checked for a temperature, they're wearing their mask, they're going directly into their parents' classroom, and they're practicing social distancing even with their mother or their father, and they're sitting at a desk and they're doing their classwork and they leave the building at the same time as the parent, they're not interacting with anyone else within the schools. That's the case, right? They're going directly to the classroom.
That's the expectation.
They're with a parent that they're living with. So to me, I don't see that as a problem. So as long as we have these guidelines in place for safety measures, I think that's the best we can do.
The other alternative is and these are tough choices. Some districts in the area have said that their teachers can work remotely. We're asking our staff to come in. We're very comfortable with that. We want to provide a good structure. So these are not easy times and these are not easy decisions.
And I appreciate that, but what I'm trying to show is no matter which perspective you're looking at it from, nothing good's coming from it.
No, not at all.
So the sooner we get the classes back functioning the way they're supposed to, and the sooner we take back local control, the better off everybody will be, because it doesn't matter which side of the issue you're on. it's gonna have a lot of negative impacts. I mean, the kids that we haven't seen that we were concerned about and we shared the concern. You know, some of those kids, that's the only chance they get to have happy moments at home, hugs and encouragement and all these things, okay? And then some of these kids just aren't gonna sit on that computer for that amount of time and be engaged.
And Dr. Lynch, you said that we are going to move forward with that. We're gonna evaluate things as soon as we get in. And we know that the governor, I believe, is supposed to tell us something again around the 11th, 9/11. So as soon as we can open, we will open.
Look forward to it.
So when I talked about opening K-5, I just wanted to be clear. I was talking about utilizing the buses from the middle school and the high school to spread out and get a shorter transportation and smaller amount of groups of students on. And I was talking about there's facilities on the south end and the north end of the county that are not as utilized as some of the other facilities. And I was talking about spreading out, as you recommended, Shannon, utilizing the middle schools if needed to accommodate, to be able to spread out classrooms in some of the over or high dense capacity schools. And basically,
I'm wondering
get this thing moving.
if, you know, maybe this is just something to consider down the road, but, you know, Currituck has always been famous for piloting programs. Maybe we can pilot opening a couple of schools, you know, to begin with. They're smaller schools and see how it works, the ones we can spread out the most. But I agree that we need to move forward with opening under Plan C and
Keep a close eye on it.
the minute
Well, I don't
we
wanna-
can go further, we need to jump on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
we're all in
don't wanna
agreement
wait
with that.
until a vaccine arrives.
Well,
I wanna get it open. And I think that's gonna be the easiest thing. It's gonna fix 95% of all the problems, if not more. There's so many problems. Every time we turn around, every time we make a choice, we cause another problem over here, not intentionally, but action, reaction.
Well, I think we all want to have schools open.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't think that's what we're here to discuss. We're
Yes,
trying to follow Governor Cooper's guidelines that he's implemented and put into place.
I'm not
Like
trying to
every
follow
other-
his guidelines.
I know you're not.
Yes, ma'am. I'm trying to
You
take
just
local
want
control.
to throw caution to the wind and open
No.
all the schools and let things happen.
No, ma'am.
But we're trying to implement this plan
To the best
to
of
the
our
best
ability.
of our ability and put the safety measures in place. And I think Dr. Lutz and the staff have done a wonderful job at putting everything into a place. And it's a guideline at this point. So if we see K2 where we need to tweak it and adjust it, that should be up to the individual teacher. If they see something's not working and they see that the child cannot stay online for 2 hours total of computer time, and they need to adjust it or shorten it or whatever we need to do, I think we can leave it up to them to take care of that. I think we need this plan, and
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't think we need to,
I just want to say, I agree they worked hard tirelessly. And
right,
I think with what we tried to direct them to do, they probably come up with about as good as you can.
that's right,
The problem is, it's not gonna work.
okay.
So the sooner we recognize that, the sooner we get a long-range plan, the better off we'll
So
be.
what's your plan?
My plan is to go ahead and get these schools at K-5 open as soon as possible. That would be my plan.
So you
That's
go
what the
against
majority of
the
people.
executive order, against
Well,
what the plan,
I would
With the state of
try
North
to
Carolina.
adhere to it as best as possible, but at some time, real leaders, I mean, you got to lead. And this is not in the best interest of the majority of people. So that being said, that's what I would do.
yeah, well, to me,
Yes, ma'am.
safety of our children is at the top of my list.
I understand.
So that's what I'm trying to think about. No, it's not the ideal situation. We'd all love to be back in school, the good old days where we could go up and hug our neighbor and hug the students and high five. You know, I would love to see that, and I think we all would. But we're doing the best that we can with what guidelines we need to follow.
I'm not even sure his guidelines are legal. That's what I'm saying. I'm not even sure they're legal.
Oh, my goodness.
Dr. Luch, you did say, you are in touch with superintendents in our region and elsewhere in the state.
Throughout the state.
Some of
yeah.
those are opening, with like K-5 or half 2 days or different, very different. And we're going to monitor those. If they're working well, then we're coming back to the drawing board, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you very much, Dr. Lee.
Thank
Well,
you.
I want to say one thing about school nutrition. Something was mentioned about doing it the way it was done this summer. I know that was extremely hard on their staff to cook and load up the buses and go to all these stops. And, I know we want to serve as many children as we can, but I'm sure school nutrition was involved in this plan as well. Okay. And at one point, something was mentioned, Dr. Lutz, I think before you got here, maybe with some of the money that we got, the CARES money, possibly doing a bonus for our nutritional staff. Now, we did.
It was on the June.
We did do
We
those.
did.
Okay, all right. Is it possible to maybe invite them to the next meeting and recognize them for all their hard work? Because when a lot of folks were working from home, the vast majority of their people, they were working every day.
Food service, transportation, and tech.
Yeah.
Right.
I love to recognize them.
As soon as we can do it without.
Did they all get a bonus in addition? They did. Okay,
Well deserved. Those three groups were
great.
Okay. All right, moving right along, we have capital budget and improvements. Dr. Lutz.
okay. Well, at our June board meeting, Mr. Craddock had asked about wrestling mats. We'll do a quick review here. So what about wrestling mats? Dog said, what do we have in our capital budget item? And Mrs. York came up and said, we have $644,260. And I think at that point in time, we were a bit surprised, and I thought that the number was what was in our general fund.
Negative. We weren't all a bit surprised, and we would have been told, we might need a chiller. We might need a septic tank. We might need this. And many times I said, and you can roll the tapes, county is responsible for capital. We need to spend that down. So I'm glad that we're going to do that.
So, it's kind of gratuitous. When COVID hit, we did not get our typical amount of money from our county commissioners. At that point in time, they said, once the economy returns, and it certainly is come roaring back in our region, as far as Reynolds and stuff goes, that we were $400,000 short. Well, so when we looked at our balance, we said, this is what the money be allocated towards: wrestling mats, the mobile unit setup, money for furniture that we need in our mobile units, scoreboards, the track that needs resurfaced, and that brings our funds down. And with the $75,000, that coming back to my comment earlier, we were able to, that money that pushed over is because we were able to appropriate CARES Act funds towards technology purchases, and then keep the local fund and push it over for capital. I'm suggesting that we keep around $150,000 in the capital fund for emergencies such as chillers and such and so forth, and about 75 to 100 for technology, given that we just saw a windfall of cash that came in, but I'm not seeing that down the road.
How much did you just say you wanted to keep?
So for technology, around 75 to 100. And then for the operations division, about 150. If people are comfortable, that could provide. That fund should not go over there. The technology one, I don't necessarily know, I would have said before, but given where we're at in this current situation where we just went one-to-one, pretty much pre-K all the way through, it'll provide us with support if we have a new server infrastructure and so on. And for example, the state, at this point in time, our state is not funding us at all on technology. Last year, they gave us, I think, $53,000. So there's your carryover. And the year before that, it was over 100,000. So at this point in time, we're not going to receive any funds for technology from the state.
Now, you're talking about keeping this in the capital outlay fund
It's
balance.
just sitting it there, and that fund balance should stay right around where it's at.
I would be in agreement with that.
I'm in agreement with that, but, clearly we knew we had more than that much money than what's on that paper right now, because when we voted to increase the amount of purchases that weren't required to come before the board, we raised it to 100,000. And then I had a little bit of issue with that. We brought it back, we reduced it back down to 50,000. So clearly, we certainly didn't think if we raised the purchases amount at that point to 100,000 without even having to come before the board, then we certainly didn't think we only had $150,000 in that account. But I'm thankful that you're pointing that out, and I'm thankful we're getting that track, and I'm thankful that we're going to do the right thing and buy some stuff instead of sitting on that money this whole time. But
That
I'm very
track
thankful.
we needed desperately because,
I'm very
well, they
thankful.
didn't get their season last year, but had they have had the season, they could not have done it at our high school, and that's just embarrassing, honestly, in the county that we're in, so.
But I applaud you for recognizing that and doing something about it, because we need all those things and more. We need all those things and more.
Thank you, Dr. Lutz. All right, next we have our first reading of spring policy update.
Okay, on the policies, what we try to put forth here are policies that are either strongly recommended or required, and they're color coded as such. This is the first reading. I know that you discussed these policies in the past week. I know some of you have some concerns. One that I'd like to bring to attention would be the teleworking policy, which is not required, but it is new, and it refers to allowing employees to work from home. It provides clearer guidelines than perhaps we even had in our own current board policy allowing people to work from home. It's a little more definitive, so I'd like you to take a much closer look at that between now and the second reading of these policies. But that,
Did we tweak that? Did we tweak that, or do we have to adopt it as they got it?
they always recommend it as they have it, but we can certainly look at tweaking that. I think it speaks to some of the concerns that you had. Because sometimes when I read policies, I'm like, kind of wonder, do we want that? But that, I like the language around there and provided a little more guidance as to what the employee can expect and when we can grant it and when we don't have to grant it.
And you're saying, and I'm not trying to be funny, but when you say they, I'm assuming it's this NCSBA, North Carolina School Board Association.
Yes, North Carolina School Board Association gives us these policies, recommends, and gives us 3 areas: required, strongly recommend, or recommend.
Nonprofit. You seen that building? About 6 stories high. Nonprofit. One guy's been there for 30 years, leading that place.
He's retiring this year.
Okay. We revised a new title policies. So this is all the first reading of both. Do you have any information to add?
I don't at this time, other than that the Title IX policies, that used to be 2, and they broke it into 7. I just wanted to point that out. So we further broke it down and tried to create even clearer guidelines.
Well, Title IX is federal
Title
program,
IX,
so we have to follow it.
we have to follow this. That is an area that we never want to get focus on.
That was part of what they were talking about, if we would have had discrepancy between the size or style of the,
Scoreboards.
yes, for the
Yes.
sporting, teams, being, between the male and female, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
Okay.
All right, and a Title I plan?
Title I plan is in the back of your folder on the left. It is very similar to our plan the previous year, it's got the blue on it. I added a paragraph there that states that Knott's Island, which was previously served as Title I, will continue to receive the same funding. We're going to continue to staff their TA, but they do not fall under the official Title I plan.
How is that?
That what?
That they don't fall under that?
They do, but the problem, because their number of students is so small, with only 30, when I talk to federal programs, trying to make their school work, you have to proportion out money a certain way. So we actually we're funding them actually at a greater rate than we're required to. But by taking them out, we're actually funding them, we're giving them the full TA. We're ensuring they get the same services. They still got the parent involvement money. Nothing, I think if you ask Kevin, Mr. Goins, the principal, I think he said that they saw no change in how we approached it. We just didn't include them. And their teachers still qualify for loan forgiveness, which I think was a concern last year. And it was still approved by the feds. Because we would have, they're allowing us to not put them here as long as we're continuing to fund them.
And Marriott just doesn't qualify.
No, he's not qualified. And we have a limited amount of funds to begin with, because again, we're a tier 3. We get
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a little perplexed on that. We don't include them in the computation because, help me with this, help me understand, because of why exactly?
So,
Would it make our money somewhere else be less? I mean, I'm missing something here, I'm
Well-
difficult, just don't understand.
they qualified for about $19,000.
Yes, sir.
And so that $19,000 went to one of the other buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, so we
We were
kept-
capped at a certain amount of money we could qualify for, no matter which building. Okay. But we couldn't take the money from one of these buildings and put it at that building, we have to use local monies.
That is correct.
Well, Title I is a very good program for our children. You know, lots of extra help, services provided to them through teachers and assistants to support what's going on in the classroom.
You're serving our most at-risk.
Are we just doing Title I reading and not math?
We're just doing reading.
Reading.
We do our best to support math, so I'm not saying that we don't, we do our best, but we definitely put our focus on reading. Just to, again, Robin is our TA who's working
Right.
Title I, nothing's changed, service model, she's still going at it. It was easier to take that 19 and give it to another and just move.
Wasn't it bookkeeping in that way for me? I thought.
It took 9 hours to get the numbers to work. Because they're so small. They said, why didn't this come up before? Why have you been doing this? When I asked. They said, they were like, that's a great idea. Why are you trying to include them and try to make this work? It's so difficult.
Okay, any other questions concerning Title I? All right, I think that's all we had on our work session agenda. I would like to close the meeting, adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much for joining us.